to start paying invoices for this project from bond proceeds. So there's a lot of other pieces in here. I didn't touch on every single thing that we're doing all the way through. But I'm happy to take questions, address any questions. And George, like I said, George is with us today, my colleague Jim Magnuson. So I'll just stand back and address questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you. Morning, George, and who else is on the line? I'm sorry.
Jim.
Hey, Jim, good morning, both of you. We do have a question from our Street and Alley Chair, Councilor Baraboo. Councilor Baraboo.
Yeah, Paul and Mr. Eilertson, can we move some of these things up if we double up and make special meetings out of some of this? I'm really concerned that this bond is going to come in too late for our construction season, that we want to start actually the last week of May on this. We've also determined, at least I've had conversation, we're not going to do a receipt of re-rating the city at this point in time because it doesn't do any good from our last rating. So we're going to dump that, and that's going to be up to the council. But I've had conversation with both Britt and Sherry about this. I don't believe we need it because we're not going to improve our structure in the city until after July. So I think we can use the ratings that we've got already. If we do this quicker, the interest rates are going up right now. I don't care what you guys say. I've been watching it very, very closely. The 10 years going up, all of them are going up. So I want this project done quicker than you guys have there. Can you pull some of these if we have special meetings, pull them closer together and get this stuff out before end of June? We're not going to see any money until the end of June. And we may need some money before that to pay contracts or for mobilization and other things ahead of time. And this is a bad time of the year for us for dollars because we don't see new dollars until into August usually after we get the money from the state. So give me some answers here on this because I'm going to pull it apart otherwise one by one because I've looked at this very specifically in the last couple of days and I think we can shorten this time frame up by 30 days if we work at it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did you get all that, Paul, George, Mr. Magnuson?
Yep, I heard most of it, I think, and maybe I'll start and George can add to that. This schedule, if we include, I wasn't sure, Mr. Baraboo, about your comment on the rating because I didn't really hear it, but I'll comment and then.
We're not going to, Paul. We're not going to look at reworking stuff on our rating. We'll go with the last one we had because we don't feel it's going to do any good right now because we're not going to increase our dollar value or our reserves until after July. Because that's when we get our $5.4 million back from the state of Minnesota in August. And other than that, we're not going to have any income coming in to improve our rating and stuff from the past. We just had a look at, and Moody's did something for us in December, right, Sherry?
Yeah, isn't it?
Sherry, you answered Councilor Baraboo's question, then we'll go back to Mr. Steinman.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Baraboo, it's an annual rating.
Yeah.
They review it annually, so Moody's did because of the bonds out.
Okay, and they upgraded us to standard instead of minus, right?
They know that they kept it the same.
Same, okay, all right. So that's the logic behind this, Paul, that we don't need to do a new rating because we're not going to increase our rating at this point in time.
Mr. Steinman?
Yeah, so a few things, Councilor Baraboo. So this schedule really is as tight as it can be. And the issue that I didn't speak a lot to that takes the most time in these deals is putting together the prospectus or the preliminary official statement. And that is to be completed in final form by the week of May 10. However, if we determine and maybe timing is of concern enough that we would determine that we're not going to get this rated, if that's the determination, I think we could move everything up by a couple weeks, maybe to the beginning of May for the official statement, and pricing, depending upon how long George needs to have the official statement out on the street. He can comment to that, but I think we could get the official statement towards completion right around the beginning of May. So it looks like maybe we could cut off at least a couple weeks. So that's comment number one. Comment number two about, I realize that in Minnesota, every city's lowest working capital point is June, just before they get their July tax settlement. We have timed this so that you shouldn't have any invoices for your project until you have bond proceeds. So you shouldn't, I mean, if they start the project in May, they send their first invoices in June, and you have 30 days to pay them. And plus the first invoice probably won't be substantial. The second, third, and fourth ones, Matt can chime in on this as well. He knows more about this than I do. But the second, third, and fourth invoices would be where you'd be talking lots of dollars. So hopefully this is timed around your project so that you really don't have to pay any invoices until you get bond proceeds to do that. So maybe with that, I'll turn it over to George, and he can just comment how long he needs to have that official statement in hand before we could go to pricing.
Well, good morning, George.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mayor and committee. And just to follow up on that point of potentially having invoices in hand before bond proceeds in hand, there will be a resolution that the City Council will consider called a reimbursement resolution, which allows you to pay, if there are an initial invoice or two that come in, you can pay those out of cash reserves and then pay yourself back when bond proceeds are available. So as a procedure, we'll make sure that that's something that happens on this bond issue. In terms of discussion, rating versus not rating, that's something that conversation is ongoing between Northland Securities and Baker Tilly, and we'll certainly have a resolution to that very, very soon. If there is a benefit of having the rating assigned, even if it's not an improvement over the last rating, we'll weigh those kind of pros and cons. Certainly there's an expense to get the rating. But if it helps to price the bonds more aggressively, you get even a small improvement, if you will, in the interest rate, it could very likely benefit the city. So we don't have that firm answer today, but certainly that will be coming very soon. As well, yesterday, city staff, Baker Tilly and I had a good conversation, along with Matt Reed with the Virginia Public Utilities, just to firm up are we including them in the bond? Are they paying cash for their part of the bond issue? So we're getting resolution to that. So that was a good step forward yesterday. So we can get the bond structure finalized, like Paul indicated, very soon. So certainly we'll keep reviewing this schedule to see if there is opportunity to shorten it. Even if there's a little adjustment in interest rates, and actually, fortunately, there's been a little reduction going on in the marketplace lately with interest rates, but we're a little ways out certainly on pricing here. But we'll try to make sure that we can keep this a compressed timeline as much as possible. But that's my update, Mayor, and committee members will certainly keep working on this in terms of trying to keep that timeline as brief as possible. So I should note somewhat in closing here is that by virtue of having the bond issues from last year on the sales tax bonds, that we're not starting from ground zero. Certainly on that bond official statement and marketing these bonds, getting the Virginia name out to the investment public, it's something that can be a little bit compressed because again, it's more updating information from last time and then revisiting with investors on, on the name Virginia and on the project itself. So I can certainly address, along with Paul, any additional questions.
I have a
Okay,
couple more.
thank you, George. I see you're spouting a new facial look there. You look very distinguished today.
Mayor, I have a couple more questions.
Yeah, we'll move to Councilor Bearable. Councilor Bearable.
Paul and George, what if we were to take, I'm noticing at your schedule, you got stuff that's going to be looked at by the committee of the whole. What would happen if we have that looked at and then schedule back to back that a special meeting so we can approve it at the same time instead of waiting for another week down the road? There's a number of those in this or this schedule that you have. What if we were to do something like that so we don't have to wait to a week later to approve it at a council meeting? There's no reason we can't do that, have a special meeting right after we discuss this stuff at a committee of the whole. Understand what I'm saying? Is it be
If I
official?
heard the question correctly,
Paul?
Counselor, the special meetings won't move the schedule along, because what is taking the most time in the schedule, and it as typically does, is putting together the preliminary official statement. And if you've ever seen one of those, they're half-inch thick and they contain an awful lot of information about the city of Virginia, about the deal, and they require a great number of hours to put together. So it isn't the number or timing of council or committee of the whole meetings that is holding this schedule back. If I heard your question right, you're a little hard to hear, but
Okay, Paul, thank you. Before, let's, Matt, is there anything that you can have to proffer for this part of the conversation? Anything you want to add? No? Okay, Councilor Bearable?
Yeah, I'm just, was wondering, Matt, what is the schedule for a start date on this? I forgot from our meetings. Is it late May?
As soon as they can.
Soon as they
It'll
can.
be weather
Okay,
driven.
which depends on the road and the frost out of the roads.
Yep.
So you got to explain to me again, Paul, why, if we move stuff up, why can't you move stuff up? So you don't have, because you're going to be here at all these meetings, Zoom on Zoom. Why can't you move your things up? I don't understand that from being in business for 40 years. Why you can't move things up? Even though that may take some time, work on it extra at your offices. That's what we pay you for, is to do these things. I want this
so
stuff
I'm
ready to go
looking-
by May. I want this stuff ready to go by May, the end of May.
Okay, okay, Councilor Bearable. Paul,
Paul, go ahead.
Mr. Steinman, go
Sure.
ahead.
sure. So I think, I'm just looking at the schedule again. We're sending out the request for official statement information to staff on the 24th of March. We can move that. We can move that up right today after this meeting. We normally give your staff 2 weeks to respond to that request for official statement information. If that time frame can be compressed, we could. I think it's reasonable to expect it's a 2-week process when we make that request. But if that's a week, then right there we gained 2 weeks. So we'll tighten this up as much as we can. But again, it just takes some time to build that official statement. But also, if we don't have the rating, and again, maybe timing is of concern enough that we move. Oh, here's the other thing: is the rating, it is directly connected to the official statement, Councilor Bearable, because they won't have a rating call to rate the deal until they see at least a second draft of the official statement, because they don't know what the deal is until they see that. So we have to request the information, we have to get it back, we have to build the official statement to a point where it can be sent to the rating agency, and then we have to schedule a rating call. and give them a week or more to get it through rating committee and get a rating back to us. Then we put the rating on the cover of the official statement. We can debate between George and I whether or not we really need to do that. So maybe we can shave some days there. But typically, we would put the rating on the cover of the official statement, hand it over to Northland, give them their 5 to 7-ish working days to have that on the street, and then price the bonds. So all of these pieces, I know it looks like there's time to take a nap between some of these dates, but honestly, there isn't. This is a pretty compressed time schedule the way that it is. But I'm going to make an effort after this meeting here to see if we can't shave off, even if it's a couple weeks or two. And George, you and I can talk about rating on the cover versus not.
I would be,
Yes,
Paul, I would be happy if you can shave that much time. I would be amenable as a counselor for you folks to do this, and I don't have a problem with this. You can shave a couple weeks off of it.
Paul?
And Mayor and
Yes, go
Mayor
ahead.
and council members, I'm sorry for butting in George here, but one of the next key meetings is April 6th. That's the next committee of the whole, when we've got certainly the bond issue structure finalized and an update on the timing, if you will, because between this meeting and April 6th, Baker Tilly and Northland will work together on determining rating versus no rating, getting the bond structure finalized, updating the timing if available. And so there'll be a more complete picture then.
Okay, thank you, George. And I think that as we move forward here, I don't see anybody else's light on. So, but as we move forward, we have a schedule in place. We have a structure in place from the Baker Tilly and Northland Securities. They're working forward. You've been working with our city administrator, both our city administrator, our finance director, and other staff with respect to moving forward with this. Councilor Bearbush requested if there's any possibility to move it up. You're going to look at that as a consideration. But from my perspective, I think moving forward, it doesn't appear as though there's going to be any significant negative impact on our ability to pay the invoices as the schedule is going right now. If there's a way to cut it, that's fine. But, this is a project we've been working on for many, many years. This is a process that needs to be followed. I think it's imperative that we continue to do due diligence and make every conceivable effort not to compromise any issues with respect to the bonds and moving forward, and still giving our staff and our city council the opportunity or all the information in order to make that decision. And I believe April 6th will be the day in which, we'll have a better handle on what can be done. So I'm comfortable with the way it is moving forward, and I would look for some other comments from any councilors if they may have. Anything from Britt, anything from you? Sherry, anything from you? Matt, anything from you? Anything else? Councilor Bearable?
Yeah, so to encapsulate this, you folks will work on this between now and April 6th to see if you can cut some time frame off of that and work with our staff, Sherry and Britt, and I'll keep in touch with them as chair of the Street and Alley Committee. Okay, is that satisfactory?
Okay, George, Paul, anything else you'd like to add to this presentation this morning?
Not from me. Thank you.
George?
No, it's been covered. Thank you.
Okay, and is it Mr. Magnuson?
Yes.
Anything from you?
No, thank you, sir.
Okay, all right. We don't need any motion. We'll just continue to move forward to our next committee, the home meeting, April 6th. Thank you, gentlemen, for the update and for the information provided. I think we have a good structure moving forward. We've always had a great working relationship with Baker Tilly and Northland Securities with our other projects, and I don't think there's going to be any change in that professional relationship that we have, and look forward to continuing moving forward with this process. This is a very important piece of our infrastructure moving forward. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have Nick Zelli from Jefferson Lines on the Zoom.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Zali.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for the invitation to join this. Yeah, I just wanted to basically have the opportunity to introduce myself. I am the Community Awareness Coordinator at Jefferson Lines, and just wanted to kind of review some of our community awareness efforts and maybe just get a bit of direction from some of you that know the community so much better than I do, and kind of where I might kind of have future conversations and direct some of our efforts. So I guess I don't know how much general awareness everyone in the council here has of Jefferson Lines and our service. But we stop, I think our stop is at the Village Inn, and I wanted to ask how that is, if there's any feedback about how that's going. But we have 170 locations in 14 states, and more locations that people can get to with affordable, convenient transportation with interline arrangements with other transit providers. So we are, let's see, we're on our route that goes through Virginia. People can get pretty easily to Hibbings, Grand Rapids, Duluth. I know these are all places that Arrowhead Transit is able to bring people as well. But the huge advantage of intercity bus service is that with one ticket, we're able to get passengers outside of service areas that Arrowhead wouldn't be able to cover. So we can get people anywhere within the state. A lot of people that use the service, our main demographics are seniors and students. A lot of people use it to get to the airport, to get to either in Duluth or in the Twin Cities, to get to appointments in Rochester, and really kind of all over the country. So my kind of interests are two. One is I'm always kind of looking for more opportunity to coordinate with other transit providers. So I've had conversations with Beverly Seidlo Tulliver. I'm not sure if that's a familiar name to any of you. She's the transportation coordinator for the Regional Transportation Coordinating Council. So that might kind of come across your radars again at some point if ever we have more kind of close coordination opportunities with Arrowhead Transit or other providers that people in Virginia would be able to use. And then the other thing that I'm kind of focusing on is, especially as we're moving out of the worst of COVID and travel becomes a little bit more possible for people, we're just kind of looking, how do we earn back our ridership, and how do we kind of get people back to using the bus, whereas they may have gotten more used to using their own cars in this time. So a few things that like really easy initiatives that a few cities were interested in was including information about the service in a city newsletter, or we were going to make flyers with specific information for each city and kind of the main destinations that people tend to go, that could be displayed in community recreation centers or other places where people tend to find that kind of information. And then I was also kind of thinking about the possibility of ridership education, which I know that a lot of people talk about this, and I think there are a lot of ways to go about it. So for many people who have never ridden a bus and maybe don't know how, it could be really useful for someone like me to be able to visit let's say an event at a senior center when that's possible, or a school, or other spaces where people are kind of linked together with another community leader that has some clout, where there would just be the opportunity to kind of teach people about how do I buy a bus ticket, where's the stop, how do I get from here to the Twin Cities, how do I get from here to Fargo. And I think that's what I've been finding kind of all throughout the state is that for those people that do use the Jefferson Lines bus service, for the most part, they're pretty satisfied with the experience. But then there are a lot of people who might not have even heard of it. So that's just kind of where I'm at. And again, as I said, I kind of, one of my main interests in being here was just to introduce myself. I don't think that there has been kind of an open line of communication between Jefferson and city leadership in at least a few years. So I'm happy that we had the opportunity to do this. So you can just know that I'm available for that going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Zelli. I think that, go ahead, continue. Okay, Mr. Zelli, we have a couple of questions from one of our counselors. But I'd like to just make a comment before we go to Counselor Johnson. This is Jefferson Bus Lines has been a transportation option for our community for many, many years. Years ago, driving bus for Northern Transportation was, had these routes moving forward. When Northern Transportation went off the grid and they left employment here, there was no transportation option other than AUA on an occasional basis to go to Duluth or someplace else. And so Jefferson took over the routes and have been providing service for quite a while. I know the city council, whether it was last year, the year before, did send a letter of support to the Department of Transportation during your efforts to glean some funding for certain projects that you have, because we thought it was important that Jefferson Bus Lines continue the service in Virginia. I do know that talking to the manager at the Village Inn, both John Oberstar and John Stinerich, who own and operate that facility, are very satisfied that the bus stops there at the Village Inn because it helps their business as well. It's right on the main roadway on Highway 53, so it provides that access. But I do know that we have supported Jefferson Bus Lines in the past, and if I may ask a question, is it your father was the commissioner of transportation? Was that your father?
That's correct.
Yeah, and I met him met with him on several occasions about transportation issues at the state level. I think we met 3 times about certain issues moving forward with that. So as far as communicating to the general public, I think it's important for us to get the word as a transportation option. So that being said, we'll move to the rest of the city council for comments. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Nick, thanks for being here today. I work at the college, and I think you're missing a huge opportunity by communicating with our college students. A number of our students are from out of state. I myself have driven students to Duluth at all hours of the day and night so they could catch a connecting shuttle, so they could connect to a bus or a plane. I would encourage you, if you haven't reached out to Mesabi College, to do so. I'm not quite sure who the right contact is, but I can get a hold of you after and get you that contact information, because there's some huge opportunities for that communication. I'm guessing next fall we'll have our Community Connect open house, as we do every fall and every spring semester. That would be a huge opportunity for your organization to communicate with probably your biggest market seasonally, being Christmas, spring break, and the end of the school year. Those would be, I see, 3 times where some dedicated service could be helpful to our students. I will let you know that I personally feel that we have some challenges working with AEOA when it comes to connecting to your drop-off point specifically. We have route buses that don't necessarily follow the route if there's on-demand calls, and that becomes concerning for our students who do know how buses should work, where you go stand at a bus stop and the bus comes every day at the exact same time unless it's snowing. That's not how our demand really works around, or our bus system works, so it's a different system. So there's some challenges getting from the college with a suitcase or two to the Village Inn to meet those needs. So that's just one of the challenges, but I would be willing to, I'll get a hold of you either today or tomorrow. I'll get contact information from Britt, and we can, connect you with the folks at the college who can really tell you what specific needs are for our students and see what kind of partnership there can be, especially during the school year. Other than that, I've not used your bus service specifically, but I do know that it becomes really nice when in a big city to be able to utilize a bus to go out for the evening and get home safely. So I appreciate that you've been in Virginia, and we do see your posters and stuff up from time to time, but I think there's some great opportunities as we move forward. Thank you.
And Nick, yeah, Nick, this is Larry Cuffey. I just want to say before we have another counselor that has a question or comment, but I want to say that we have utilized your service. I have personally. We have through our church. We have through our servicemen, Veterans of Foreign Wars, VFW organization. We've provided transportation opportunities for people to get connecting rides or direct transportation through Jefferson Airline, through Jefferson bus service to go to Chicago, Minneapolis, all over the place. And if you didn't have that service in Virginia, meeting at the Village Inn, it would make it much more difficult for us to be able to provide those services, so people who really need that transportation. And that's basically the only transportation that they can afford, or the only transportation that organizations have as an option to get people from one place to another, whether to a medical appointment or just to move to a permanent location or something, to visit a sick member. So it is an important service that you provide. So any advertisements that you have, wherever you want to do that, would be beneficial as you promote the services you provide here in Virginia as part of your route service. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor, and good morning, Nick. Thank you for being here. I don't think you can see us, but hi. Anyway, I just wanted to mention, and this might have been an issue a while back, and I don't know if it's been addressed, but veterans were actually having difficulties to have transportation provided to get to the VA hospital in Minneapolis, and I'm just wondering if Jefferson has noticed that or addressed that. This might have been 3 or 4 years in the past that I recall that being an issue or concern. But I would encourage you to maybe reach out to I don't know where, maybe the Vets Club. When you had mentioned that, I just was kind of dovetailing on that was a significant, even just from our hospital here, Essentia, if a doctor was going to be giving a referral to the vets, to the VA, hospital, that transportation piece was a challenge. Thank you.
Okay, that's really good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think to dovetail on what Councilor Paulson indicated, there is a veterans transportation program where volunteer drivers will be notified by the various health organizations moving forward to voluntarily transfer these people to whatever medical appointment they got, no matter where it is. But there's times when they can't do that, and that's what's important, to continue to have your service, Mr. Zelli, here in Virginia.
Right, yeah.
Okay, anybody else have?
That should be a key element, and especially in a long distance. So
Okay, thank
I'll
you.
definitely look into what that might have been.
Thank you, Mr. Zelli. We have Councilor Johnson. Councilor Johnson.
One thing I forgot to mention, Nick, was that we have public access, and if you have a short 30-second minute informational of how you were talking about how to buy a ticket, where to buy a ticket, that kind of stuff, as long as it meets our public access guidelines, that is available, and believe it or not, that is a channel that gets watched very regularly by the older citizens in our community. So I think, and then those are the kinds of things that we can share on our social media as well, if there's a short a short little thing. I've been thinking, I actually wouldn't know where to buy a Jefferson ticket if I didn't have online access. So that might be some other stuff that, we could work on to make it easier to access the longer range transportation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments from the council or in the audience? Seeing none, Mr. Zelli, any closing comments?
I don't have anything in particular to add to that. All of those points are extremely useful, and I'll follow up with you, Councilman Johnson, on the college contact in particular. I think there's a lot to go on from here, and I hope to kind of be able to travel up to Virginia at some point this summer, or into the fall, as things open up. So perhaps there will be more opportunity to kind of meet in person, and to kind of meet with other leaders in the community. But so far, this is really useful information to go with. So
Okay, well, thank you very much to Mr. Zelli for appearing today and give us an update on Jefferson bus lines. And once again, in closing, I'd like to say I'm glad you continue to provide that service. So you have a great day, and thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much,
Great.
Nick. Thank you. Item number 3 is review the furniture, fixtures, and equipment package for the MEC. We have Julie Spearing and Eric Wedge from DSGW.
Good morning, Julie. Nice to see you here. Good morning.
Is my mic on?
It is.
All right. Well, thank you for having me here today. I have been working with staff. My name is Julie Spearing. I'm with DSGW Architects. I've been working with your staff and the design committee to select furniture items for the MEC project. And we'd like to give you a little summary of where we're at and what the next steps in the process are. Our first step in the furniture process is very similar to the architectural process. We establish some guiding principles that lead us through the process, and got those up on our screen here, along with a summary of where our budget is at right now. This is our schedule. Right now, we are getting kind of into the end of our documentation process. We've been reviewing samples and have some samples that are on order. Councilors Beyondich and Councilor Paulson were part of our initial sampling of some items for the convention center in particular. The new chair samples shipped yesterday. So I will be in touch to get a next meeting scheduled so that we can test drive a little bit more. Some key dates here are end of April. That's when we're targeting. We want to be placing orders for the furniture items. Most of the items don't take that 16 to 20 week lead time that I have noted there. That's kind of our worst case scenario and just what we plan for, especially with COVID now. There have been a few situations with shipping delays, so we just want to make sure that we're on top of that. Once the items are delivered and installed at the MEC, we will inspect them, make sure everything's up to snuff, and give a final approval, and that's when things will be turned over to you. So we've got some additional meetings coming up yet, and those are summarized there on the bottom as well. Starting with the events center, we are purchasing all new seating and training style tables for the event center itself. The conference rooms and the large room are all going to have matching furniture so that you have a lot of flexibility and can kind of utilize extras from either or room depending on what you have going on. You are planning on reusing your existing longer rectangular tables and your round tables. Round tables are particularly useful for wedding setups and such. Information, oops. That's right. Information on purchasing of those items is listed there in the summary as well. The chairs themselves, we have an image of that sample on the left-hand side there. Our next samples are kind of our preferred finishes as well. So we're going to be able to see the actual items and kind of compare them to other finishes within the facility, which is a really nice opportunity to do. The tables were also an important part of this process because they're a big investment for you. Our initial sample that we looked at, we didn't like the flip-top mechanism, so we wanted to kind of test drive a different model, so that option will be available when we are next together. We are doing a combination of the flip-top style and the folding style, again, for flexibility. I've got some example layouts that we'll just run through quickly here. This is kind of the maximum capacity setup of the conference room, the large room itself. Facing to the left there would be the presenter on the left-hand side of the screen, and single rows of chairs. You've got a capacity of 740 people in that room. This is a radial layout with the presenter on the top portion of the layout there, capacity of 500. This is a single room training setup, capacity of 226. And here is the room kind of divided into sections, 4 sections, each with 54 seats per section. Oops. This layout shows your existing rectangular tables for an event where you've got capacity for 542, banquet setup of 390, and 502. Those are reusing the existing round tables. The small conference rooms across the hall from the large room each have a capacity of 42 seats per room for rows of chairs, or in a training setup, approximately 16. The boardroom adjacent to those 2 conference rooms has furniture that is a little bit more special. So that room is going to be, can be booked for special occasions. The furniture in there is unique and a little bit more executive in style, per se. So what we've got some very nice chairs in there and a very nice table that will be a really nice complement to the facility. Out in the circulation spaces, we call it pre-function or the concourse area, the area with the skylights. We are kind of doing some accent seating along the hallways. All of this is flexible and can be moved out of the way when you have events going on, but a little bit of seating and just breakout space for the event center. We have also, across from the main event room, our pre-function space, which we call the fireplace room. We've been lovingly referring to it as Virginia's living room. So this is going to have a little bit more of a cozy feel with that fireplace, lots of natural light, obviously. So we're looking for a little bit more of a residential flavor in this room. So that's what is reflected in the furniture items here. Moving on to the arena side of things, this is the lounge area that's underneath the staircase. Lots of natural light there again. And furniture layout here is a little bit more playful and flexible, though still. All of these components are movable. And this is an area where kids are going to be waiting for a pickup. You might have people filtering down here during events and hanging out too. So lots of flexibility and a little bit more cozy. Upstairs in the breakout area outside of the arena, we have the layout on the left-hand side. So again, we're using some of that kind of curvilinear lounge furniture along with some taller cafe height stools facing the stair, and then some tables and chairs along the top wall there, and some benches. Again, all movable, so if you ever want to use this space as like a additional meeting space during a convention, that could very easily be accommodated in here as well. And then inside the arena, we've got 3 corners available. We're going to do a little bit of seating, tables and chairs at cafe height in those corners for, I could see somebody popping up there and taking a phone call or just stretching their legs, getting away from their seats during an event. This is a visual of the examples of the furniture items. The images themselves don't reflect the finishes that we're selecting, but just to give you an idea of the style and character, you can see how this is a little bit more playful and contemporary in feel compared to the fireplace lounge downstairs. In the offices, we have open office layout, the director's office, and a conference area. The space has been laid out in order for you to have some flexibility to add staff in the future. We've also coordinated that with our power and data that's being installed right now as well. So you can see the kind of future stations dashed in there. Nice layout. This area, we are going to request quotes from vendors. So the final finish selections will be kind of figured out once we have that vendor on board and decide who you're going to work with for that. But we'll use these documents, these layouts for kind of the basic request for quotation. We also have some miscellaneous items that you need, like folding coat racks, beverage carts, trash cans. Those are all also included in a package that will be released for quotation, and we will be developing a performance specification that lists kind of the performance requirements of each item and give vendors an example of what they may choose to give a quote on, but also allow alternates as well. And I'd love to hear questions if you have any.
Okay, I just have a quick comment, if I may. We had the opportunity, obviously, to have our local legislators and our lobbyists move forward with the introduction of a bill that would include some of the removal of the sales tax for furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and others pieces of equipment that require us to pay a sales tax. And so giving testimony about the states and the legislature, it's difficult to determine exactly how much that's going to be. It's because we don't know what our total costs are associated with that. Our city administrator had come up with a number along with our city finance director about what we project it to be, what we've paid up to date based upon the MEC. It's a separate one for the public safety facility, but they have moved it out of conference both at the House and the Senate for the bill to be heard in general session to determine whether or not they're going to approve that. Now, we don't have any guarantee that we're going to get some kind of a sales tax reimbursement as a result of that, and the final numbers still are to come. So I guess that being said, my question is that when we're going to order these furniture, when do we anticipate that furniture to be ordered? Sometime within the next month or so, or the week, or?
I would anticipate orders being placed within about 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, 6 to 8 weeks. So at the end of May, whatever that is, whatever that final date is when the legislative session is over. And we likely wouldn't know if we're going to get a reimbursement until that day. Usually it's the last hour before all these bills are actually approved and introduced and things of that nature. So we can't rely on any additional money with respect to that. So, when you're making when this design team is, and you all are making the decision moving forward, you leave that out of the equation. I think you have so far, and want to purchase what you need and what you think is the best possible equipment to provide a professional environment for people at the MEC. So I thank you for that, Julie, moving forward. So I'll move it to anybody on the council have any questions, comments, particularly from the design team. Did you have your light on, Eric? No? Okay. Anybody else have any questions so far about how we're moving forward? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I was back here so that people at home can see the presentation, so I'm doing a little camera work. One of the concerns I have, and I voiced this just in general for city staff, is when the director's office, Brian's egress, if there were something to go wrong, is blocked if someone's standing in his door. And I just want to know what kind of design thought goes into placing those desks and stuff in the office space in case of the unforeseen happens.
Councillor Johnson,
You don't have to face me. You can go ahead and face forward. That's where the camera is. Thank you.
we did analyze many different layouts for Brian's layout. We looked at, I don't know, maybe 6 or so three-dimensional and layout views for his space. We do certainly consider a layout that allows the director to have the closest access to the door. In this situation, it wasn't what was selected, but do know that all this furniture is flexible. Nothing's attached to the walls, so it can be reoriented in the future if you'd like to do that, or modified in order to adjust the layout for someone else.
Yeah, thank you. And just to add what Councillor Johnson indicated, I know in some of these other facilities, when we ask questions, you know, based on my background, I look at it from a security perspective, an access perspective, ability to get out in case of emergency or a lockdown situation. So when we look at those things, I ask these different variations. Have you looked at, you know, those kind of when you set up, you know, your feng shui or wherever you set up the system, you know, how is that going to best protect the environment for those who are working there? You can't control the crowd because there's going to be an evacuation plan, but as far as being able to do a lockdown and those kind of things, so I think the configuration of the desks and no matter what room you're in, I believe that has to be considered moving forward, and I'm sure that I don't know if you've discussed that at all, but I think that's a consideration as you make your final decision on how you're going to lay out these office spaces. Thank you, Julie. Anybody else? Councillor Friedli.
Excuse me, Mayor, I wasn't done yet.
I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you.
Please continue.
So on the sales tax, I think that's one of the reasons we really want to have a City of Virginia vendor, because we get 1% of that sales back to pay for the MEC. So it's just, and I know that's something y'all are working on and being diligent about, but that to me, that would be the one reason to choose someone in the cities, because if we buy somewhere else, we don't get the 1% back for funding our own building. And then the last question I have is about the durability and cleaning, the comfortable chairs. What's the lifespan on those? How far out do we need to budget to replace chairs and tables in the common spaces?
One of the big differences of, I think, what we're seeing now versus what we saw in the past is all of the seating that we are doing in the convention center, the boardroom, is upholstered in a vinyl upholstery for the seats. The convention center has fabric backs, and the boardroom has a faux leather on them, and the living room area has faux leather as well. There is, I think, both an impression of cleanliness in that regard, and it's also easier to clean. We also watch for the fabrics themselves that we're specifying to make sure that they are going to hold up to the cleaning products that you're going to use.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. I don't like the word vinyl, but Councillor Friedli.
Yeah, that ties into what Councillor Johnson, I was talking, thinking in terms of scratch and cut resistance, stain and spill resistance, graffiti resistance, cleaning and maintenance efficiency, storage efficiency. I'm sure that's all taken into account, because this place will only be as nice as it looks nice, to be honest with you. So those things have to be seriously taken into consideration. So thank you.
Yep, they are certainly part of the early design conversations. I will say that all of the manufacturers that we're looking at here these products are made for this application.
And the reason I say I don't like vinyl is that, I don't like vinyl, but talking to some of these other venues, in the summertime when they have these events and people wearing shorts, and they're sitting down on these chairs and it's hot out, their legs stick to this vinyl and it's very uncomfortable. So I don't know if that's the kind of vinyl fabric you're putting on has some kind of a texture that may prevent that from happening, but that seemed to be a cause of angst among some of the managers of these facilities and some of the employees that work there. That that's, of all the complaints that they get, that was one of the complaints I thought was, I thought it was petty. I thought it was, but thinking about it after a while, I think it probably has some merit, so.
I tell you what, I'll wear shorts to the next design meeting and I'll check
Test
that
them
out. Yeah. I will say that the vinyls, particularly on the lounge furniture and the convention room chairs, is a very nice quality vinyl. It's not that glossy, sticky type
the
of
plastic.
product. Yeah, so.
Thank you, Julie.
Yes.
Eric, you had your light on.
I was just going to address Counselor Johnson's question on egress out of Brian's office and just state that the building is completely compliant with code requirements. There are not 2 doors out of Brian's office. There's only 1 door, but it does completely comply with the occupancy of that space. So from a building code standpoint, it is compliant.
Okay, thank you, Eric.
Can I add
Counselor Freely.
Just one last question, like, in terms of the grand total budget of 327, is that in line with what was the preliminary anticipated budget?
Yes.
Okay,
Actually, that is below what was anticipated,
good, thank you.
significantly.
Thank you, Brian. Anything else, Counselor Freely there? Okay. Anybody else? Julie, anything else to add? So this is something that you present to us, what we're looking for. You'll continue to work with the design team and staff to come up with the final numbers to bring forth to the entire council for approval. Very good. I want to say thank you for all the hard work you're doing in the design team moving forward, and have the community members involved along with our city staff, Park and Rec Commission, and our representatives on the council from the design team. I think you've done yeoman's work moving forward, so I look forward to the final product. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. I thought I had put my light on, but I must not have. So again, going back to the expenditure on the office furniture, did we arrive at a process then finally of how we're gonna conduct that with the local vendors?
So my direction is that we are going to request quotations
Okay.
for that.
So that's kind of, and then how do you get the word out that that's what you're looking for?
It is below the threshold
Yeah, it is.
of legally needing to advertise. The city may choose to advertise it if you want. Honestly, I don't know if it's really worth it. I will reach out to the vendors that we know of in the community, and would also, if anyone contacts us, we can't say, no, you can't quote.
So just so I'm just understanding, we've kind of arrived at a process and we're
Yes.
good with that process. Okay. And then it has come to my attention that there's been a change to one of the businesses. And so I'd like to maybe, I don't know if that should be at the design meeting or design team meeting, maybe just have a discussion regarding and around that and what that might look like for future. I think would be an important discussion to have.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Freely.
Just an additional thought that came to mind, with all these different configurations and the new volume of equipment that we'll have in a facility like this, has there been thought given as to whether or not we have the staffing capacity to handle being able to change these things out? Or are we going to be looking at the potential to have to be hiring additional personnel to be able to set up for large functions?
We've known from the beginning with ISG, when they first did the first pro formas, we need more staff. We're going to need more staff. We don't need them today, but we're going to need them very soon after that building's open. Yep. So there will be a personnel meeting coming up very soon to talk about that.
Okay. And I mean, had we anticipated that when we went into this, that this
Yes.
was the case? That we were going to be expanding not only our facility, but the staff as well, and that was all taken into
Yep, and
consideration?
that was actually an ISG,
Okay.
was that they told us flat out, you don't have enough staff to run this building.
And the funding mechanism for that is?
It was part of the pro forma, so it was built in to have at least 2 more people, if not 3.
Okay.
Immediately, and then to work towards adding more people
Good.
as the years go.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I can
thank
tell
you.
you, Brian's already been lobbying me every day when we talk about staff, so.
But it was included in the financial pro forma as we get, I remember that.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Freely. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And being on the design team, it's been, we've taken that into consideration, the ease of movement of some of these tables and how one person can handle it versus 2 or 3 people can handle it. So that does come into the design of tables and chairs and the move, you know, how they can be moved quickly from one space to another. So thank you.
And so that goes to your inclusive discussion on ergonomics and potential employee safety and reduction of injury potential, those kind of things. Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else anybody has? Britt, do you have anything you'd like to add? So we just continue to move forward in the next meeting, and thank you for the update, Julie and Eric, for this, and so we'll look forward to another update and moving forward to making a final decision.
I will be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie. Eric, thank you.
Julie,
Great.
great presentation.
That was really good.
The next item on the agenda is the review of the request for license agreement between Vermilion Gold, Inc. and the City of Virginia. And I will defer to Brian Lindsay on this one.
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Mayor, members of the council. So in the package, you'll see a draft of the access agreement that I provided. It is a fairly short-term agreement. It would commence upon approval from the council and would extend only until May 31st. And it gives them access to provide or to undertake what is understood to be non-invasive testing. And for that access right, I believe they're going to pay us a sum of about $200 to help offset some of our administrative costs in just addressing their request. My understanding is that typically for 5 to 7 year agreements, they would have been paying about $500. So this is actually a pretty good payment, relatively speaking. So I'd be happy to field any questions the council may have.
Thank you, Brian. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm just ready to, I'll move that, we move this forward as it's written for environmental testing.
Okay, Councilor Johnson moves the request for licensing agreement between Vermilion Gold and the City of Virginia as presented by our city attorney. Is there support?
Support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Freely for discussion. Further discussion, Councilor Freely.
Is there any risk whatsoever with regard to disturbing materials that could potentially be liable for us to have to mitigate or anything like that we've talked about in the past? That would be my only concern. Is it pretty benign in terms of like what may be uncovered that would be liable to us?
So a couple of things. We built some provisions into the agreement that addressed if they cut timber or clear brush, those sorts of things. But I think specifically speaking to your point, my understanding of what they're actually going to do, they're not going to be disturbing the soil. They'll be using magnets.
And the non-invasive investigation?
Correct. Yep. I had spoken with the representative about the potential of drilling test holes and things like that. They said none of that is happening. It's going to be all this magnet process. So.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So it's been moved and supported to move forward and approve the licensing agreement between the City of Virginia and Vermilion Gold as presented by our city attorney. Is there any further discussion? The hearing, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item number 5, approve the professional services agreement with SCH for construction administration services. Sorry.
Matt from SCH. Matt Reed. Good morning, Matt.
Hi, good morning, Mayor, members of the council. Yeah, there's actually two of them in front of you, but the first one I think is on the agenda is the one for the 2021 and actually it's 21, 22, and 23 project that we're about ready to start. And farther down the agenda, we'll be talking about awarding the bids to the low bidder. The bids actually came in very good, so I'm excited to talk about that when we get to that one. But right now, the item at hand is the professional services agreement for construction services for all of this summer, all of next summer, and probably a good portion of 2023 as well to get that project completed. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I just have one question. Your contract with us for engineering service expires when? Yeah, the agreement we have between SCH and the city for SCH engineering services.
At the end of this year.
The end of this year, so we'll be looking at another, okay, thank you very much. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, Matt, looking at the numbers and stuff, I'm guessing your percentage on this is about 7%, is that correct, for this project?
That would be about right, yep.
Okay, then that's a good rate, so I have no problems with this.
Okay, looking, any other council questions regarding item number 6 on the agenda? Looking for council action.
Mayor, I'll move that we move forward with the agreement with SCH for the LB 21 through 23. What do we actually call that, Matt? The
Construction services agreement.
Construction administration.
The Street and Infrastructure Improvement Project.
Okay.
Okay, moved by Councilor Baraboo and supported by Councilor Barnzelli. Did you get that whole, all the gist of that motion, Pam? Okay, moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? A hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
And the next one is the Construction Administration Service Contract for the Silver Lake Trail Improvement Project.
Thank you. You're looking for council action with respect to that? Councilor Johnson.
I will move the administrative services contract for Silver Lake Trail.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson moves to approve item number 6, which is the professional service agreement with SCH for the construction administration services for the Silver Lake Trail Improvement Project. Is there support?
I'll support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Paulson. Further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. This might be a good time to ask or maybe have Matt address the tree line issues and maybe just explain to the community that there will be replanted.
Oh, for Bailey Lake?
For Bailey's, yeah.
Sure.
If you don't, just as long as we're talking about the project, I mean, as a whole, they're just, I know we had received a letter regarding that. And just maybe to clarify for the community what the overall plan is so they can understand better.
Sure, I can do that.
Thank you, Matt.
So we'll start with Bailey Lake Trail. Yeah, the trees, some of those trees had to come down in order to get the trail built to the proper trail standards. The plan is, it's not under this current contract with the contractor, but I know in talking with Park and Rec and with Britt, the plan is to replant some trees. Once the trail's all done, pick out some good areas where the trees can flourish and not interfere with the trail and wreck that trail. So there is a plan to replant some trees as we get farther down the path. Hopefully that project will wrap up August, September of this year, and then we can decide when and where we want to put those trees. Similarly, when we get working on Silver Lake, this section of Silver Lake Trail, I don't believe has any trees that are going to get removed. If it is, it's very, very minimal. But we actually talked about in that area, even planting more trees than what are there now. This is the section right across the street from the Holiday gas station. So, yeah, so we're in the process of working on all of that as well to try to reforest some of those areas.
Thanks for that, I appreciate it. And I think people in the community will appreciate that as well.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. And as we have designated our Park and Rec Director, Brian Silber, along many of the other duties and responsibilities he had, he also shares the responsibility of the tree planting program and managing the trees throughout the city of Virginia. I'm sure his involvement along with SCH and staff and the council will ensure that an answer to Councilor Paulson's and all our questions about making sure that we do have some more foliage and trees planted as moving forward. So thank you very much, Matt, for that. So it's been moved and supported for item number 6. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Since we have Matt at the podium, if it's possible, could we jump down to item number 8, accept the
go.
bid from Casper Construction for the 2021 Street and Infrastructure Project Improvement bid in the amount of $7,874,000?
Okay, very good. Matt, could you give us a little update on that?
Certainly. So we did. We opened bids last week. The engineer's estimate was about 8.4 million, and you can see the low bid was about 8. It's about $500,000 under the engineer's estimate. So that was encouraging to see. We had I think five bidders. and they were real competitive bids. So my recommendation would be to go ahead and award the project to Casper Construction for that amount that Britt read off.
Yeah, and thank you very much. And I know there were some issues with Casper Construction on the Midway Drive project. There were some scheduling issues trying to move forward with that, but I think that all got resolved. They were very good in making sure that they remediated everything there. So people are satisfied with the work that they've done on the Midway Drive project. So I'm looking for further discussion or action for item number 8 on the agenda, the awarding of the bid for the 2021 Street Infrastructure Project Improvement Bid to Casper Construction in the amount of $7,874,000.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Councilor Bearable moves to approve. Is there support?
I'll support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Paulson for further discussion. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. And Matt, what has Casper's history been like in terms of change orders? Have they been pretty decent? Or have they come before us with, I'm just trying to recall if there has been any.
They've been real good to work with.
Okay.
You know, there's always changes on projects, of course. I shouldn't say always, but almost always anyway. But no, they've been real good to work with on those.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Matt.
There's another motion tied to that we are looking for. We're looking to accept the quote from NTS for 2021 Street Project Infrastructure Improvement Material Testing Services in the amount of $39,483.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Johnson, item number 9, which is accept the quote. Support by Councilor Freelieb to accept the quote from Northeast Technical Services from NTS for the amount 2021 Street Improvement Infrastructure Material Testing in the amount of $39,483. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Matt, very much.
And if we can go back to item number 7, we do have Jody from the library here to request to conduct a big truck event at the library on June 22nd, 2021, which would include closure of Fifth Avenue for the event and to authorize city staff and equipment to attend the event.
I guess equipment's going to be attending, huh?
How can we have a big truck event without it?
Okay. Jody, good morning. Nice to see you.
Nice to see everyone. Good morning. So we are in the midst of summer reading planning, and due to circumstances, we are planning everything outside. And we thought that it would be really awesome to have a big truck event. So it doesn't matter which big truck. Stephanie can work with that for story time, no problem. But we do know for safety reasons that we would need to close the street in front of the library, have the trucks. And she's got some great ideas of like maybe giving stickers to the kids so they all get involved, because we know sometimes some kids are going to be, and I should also say that this is also for big kids. So if there are big kids that want to come climb on the trucks, they can. But that is our request. So that one would be June 22nd. We will start our summer reading program in early June, weather permitting, of course.
Okay, thank you, Jody. I know that you have other things going on there, and then I don't know if you're going to add other venues to the event or.
Oh yeah, we're going to the farmer's market all the month of July. We'll have other outside events. We've got we should have the final schedule by end of this month, early April. We're still working on a few other things with our whole summer reading program, because we will go present to schools either virtually or in person, depending where we're at, before school lets out for the end of the year.
That's fantastic. And we've closed Fifth Avenue before for the Youth for Christ event, for their big, event. So this is this is going to be a great opportunity for us. So I'll move over to Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Beyondich.
I will make that motion.
Okay, Councilor Beyondich makes the motion to approve the to conduct a big truck event for the library on June 22nd, 2021, and to close Fifth Avenue and allow staff and equipment as part of this process to attend. The schedule and of events is forthcoming. Is there support? Support. Support by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Barnzelli.
Thank you. Will those trucks be trailered over there? Are you going to drive them over there?
So So I did actually have an opportunity to talk to somebody, and they said, well, we've done that in the past for some of the schools, so we can clean them up and bring them over. So whichever trucks they want to bring over and whoever wants to volunteer to be answering all sorts of questions from kids, we will work with them and go from there. I do not want to drive a big truck. No, thank you.
Have you talked with the police department for support? They'll lead the way for those trucks.
Okay,
You know?
I can bring that up in a director's meeting.
Couple cars, 4 cars. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Barnzelli. So it's been moved and supported to approve the big truck event. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Judy. Jody.
Very much.
Thank you very much.
The next item is item number 10, review of community development, planning, and permitting job descriptions. This is coming from the committee, the latest Personnel Committee meeting, which was held on March 5th, 2021. The minutes are in your packet. And at that meeting, we discussed the elimination of the administrative assistant position in engineering, and then the addition of 2 other positions, senior administrative coordinator position, and an addition of a construction codes inspector position. The job descriptions are in your packet.
And thank you. And I think during this course of this meeting, we did, and I think you have provided, is it in the packet? I didn't quite look at that information regarding the costs associated, what our cost is for the former engineering department and what we're looking at now. And by making these approvals, and it was recommended, and I'll refer to Councilor Freely or Councilor Paulson for any additional information about the personnel meeting. We did approve those positions, and looking at the costs associated with that and what our engineering costs were in the past. By making these changes, did it add anything to the budget? Actually did not. We actually are saving money by making these reorganizations moving forward. So I'll refer to Councilor Paulson or Councilor Freely for any additional comments or questions. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So just for everyone's knowledge, I think we had a really productive meeting with AFSCME. And when we all sat at the table, just putting the job descriptions together and what the levels of their new responsibilities and new duties are, we were kind of able to work through what that salary range was, or that hourly rate was, in a very amicable fashion. So I'm comfortable moving forward with both of the positions, just knowing that there is going to be additional responsibilities within each of those positions. And really I don't know if we're talking about both of them right now, but the position that is going to really be key is the coordinator between the police, the fire, and the city. So I'm really looking forward, and as we look forward to the new public safety center, I think this is just forward thinking to be prepared for a different level of what basically will be needed within the city. So I was very comfortable with our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Freely.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I guess I want to send out some kudos to AFSCME and their membership. In particular, oftentimes during negotiations and/or development of job descriptions, there's kind of an enlightened self-interest amongst membership. But the reality is there's been a significant turn here in this city where they are benefiting the city and not just their membership. And I think that needs to be acknowledged by the efforts that they've made so far, and not only their contract, but also the development of these new jobs to redistribute the responsibilities within the department and make it a more efficient working environment for everybody. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. So these are the recommendations moving forward from the Personnel Committee, and staff met with AFSCME and the staff, and these are the job descriptions and the assigned values to those. And so we bring this forth from the committee, recommending that to the committee of the whole that we consider this for approval at the next council meeting. So I'm looking for any additional comments, questions from the council. Councilor Johnson.
Mayor, what's the time frame as we look at first eliminating the position, and is there anybody in that position now, and then what does that look like moving forward, and what's that process look like?
We eliminate the administrative assistant position next Tuesday, that if today was approved to go to next Tuesday. We would have to eliminate the position and then post for the new position immediately because we don't want to leave that staff person in limbo. There is a person that is in that title, but doing way beyond that job description. So we expect that person is not going to leave the city. We expect they're going to post into one of these 2 open positions. It would have to be posted internally for 7 days. If nobody applies for them, then it goes out to the public. Our hiring process takes about 6 weeks, so anybody new would be here, we're in March, so maybe May.
Okay, thank you. I will move that we eliminate the administrative assistant, the engineering department, but that will still stay in the contract, correct? Or is it not a contract position?
It's actually, all the administrative assistants are lumped under one category.
Oh, okay, so that's
that
not an
It
issue.
will stay in the contract, it just won't have that department listed behind it.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, it was moved by Counselor Johnson to eliminate the administrative assistant position in the former engineering department. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Now the next one, the addition of the senior administrative coordinator position.
I will move the creation and posting for that position.
Counselor Johnson moves to approve the creation and of the senior administrative coordinator position. Is there support? Support by Counselor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
I will move the addition and posting for construction codes inspector position.
Okay, Counselor Johnson moves to approve the addition of the construction codes inspector position for the former engineering department, which is now officially called
Community Development, Planning, and Permitting.
Community Development, Planning, and Permitting Department. Is there a support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Bearable. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I just want to say thank you to the council, to staff, and the ASME organization, the labor, and moving forward with the recommendation approval of these positions. So thank you very much.
Item number 11 is discuss the proposed tax bills for the House and Senate.
Okay, I've had a significant conversation at the legislative level about that, but because this is an agenda item that Councilor Baraboo put on for discussion, I'll refer it back to Councilor Baraboo for his comments and questions. Councilor Baraboo.
Yeah, after going through these particular two, the House File 496 and the Senate File, I think it's 1089, they're redundant type bills that we're accomplishing this stuff, especially on the one where they want to put together a community tax committee. All our meetings are public, every single one. We announce them, we put them out there, we have information. Anybody can look at it and stuff. We go through that process starting in August usually and September, then we have to finalize the final levy to the county by September 30th. I'm in opposition, Rams is in opposition to this, I can tell you that right now, to this particular bill. It's just something that we don't need in the city of Virginia. Our budget process is wonderful. We do it very specifically with our departments. We go through department stuff, then we go on to summaries that Sherry keeps updating for us as we go through the process. We make our final decision by the 30th of September. And that doesn't mean we can't reduce it, we just can't go higher. So I think it's a redundant bill. We should oppose it and send a resolution opposing it.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, you want to continue?
Yeah, I was going to go to 1089 too, unless somebody has questions on this 496. If you read it, it's crazy.
Well, I think I do have one in
go ahead,
discussion
Mayor.
at the legislative level and with others. This particular bill that was introduced It's not been moved to the conference committee yet, or hasn't been moved forward for further. It's still in the infancy and the embryonic stages as a revisor bill moving forward. There doesn't seem to be garnered a lot of support. There's a lot of opposition to it from communities throughout the state of Minnesota. So just want to say that moving forward. So thank you, Councilor Bearable. Please continue.
So I gather what you're saying, we should just sit on this, or should we send something so they know we're opposed? Mayor, that's the question.
Yeah, sure. Did you want to talk about the other bill? Oh, well, hang on. We do have a question from Councilor Paulson. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Bearable, what was the initial reason that this bill was being proffered?
Well, that's the question. Nobody seems to know except the individual. I can't remember the representative's name, Marquardt.
So it just seems to add another layer onto.
We have to be a little bit careful with Mr. Marquardt because he is the chairman of the tax committee, so we don't want to maybe do something too bad when they're looking at this sales tax reduction. I think.
But I mean, is the intent to create like a buffer? Is that the intent, or is it?
The intent was to have more community input, I believe, into the process of budgeting for the following year. But our process is so open already.
Right.
And you want a 9-member committee, try to find a 9-member committee. We can't find some of them for 5 in the city of Virginia.
So the recommendation from Rams is that we oppose this.
Yeah, everybody that was at our Rams meeting, this came up at our Rams meeting, and it was sent out to us. Everybody
I read
was
it
at
the
that
last
meeting.
time you brought it here.
Yeah, everybody was at the meeting, 22 members out of our 24-member board. They're all, school districts are opposed to it, they're all opposed to it.
Thank you for that, appreciate
Okay.
it, Charlie.
There is an ultimate goal here, is to pressure the community to determine a committee that's going to pressure the elected body to put together a levy that's lower than what we may need, or whatever the case may be, so or higher, so that when we come to when communities go to the state legislature to ask for some relief in taxes, or asking for a more sales tax or something like that, there would be less of an opportunity for them to do that. And being a tax committee chair, there's a lot of opposition in allowing additional taxes on a part of the city. They don't like sales taxes that are being preferred by the city, and they're becoming more and more and more effective. So they're looking for ways in which to try to suppress the cities from doing so. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm not comfortable as a body saying that the entire city of Virginia supports or does not support this. I think that we do need to be careful when we as a body give a united voice behind a potential bill. That is why we have state representatives that we can each individually contact. I won't support any action saying yes or no to this, because I know half of my constituents probably would like to see us another layer to control spending, and half of them, well, I would say a third would want this, a third wouldn't want it, and a third just don't care. And I would also always, as I always ask, what is our legal obligation when it comes to passing a resolution saying, yes, this should work, or no, this should not work? I would think if everybody in Virginia who was opposed to this contacted our local representatives via email or telephone or letter, would be much more effective than a city going, we don't want this. So that's my take on it. I have my personal opinion about it, but I don't think that is necessarily relative or relevant as we're looking at bills that are still in committee. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. You know, and these two bills that are being represented, I think it's prudent for us to be aware of them, to be able to find out, you know, where they're at in the process. And I have a tendency to agree that I don't think we need a resolution at this time, because Rams has already made a statement there. It's come from a regional approach. We have legislative representatives on both sides of the aisle who have been adamantly opposed to this and looking for a reason why this is being existing. And there's all kinds of discussions moving forward. And even though it hasn't been pushed forward beyond the revisor bill, I think it would be prudent for us to wait and see how that legislative process moves forward. That's my opinion as well. Anybody else have anything? Councilor Freely, and then we'll go back to Councilor Bearable. Councilor Freely.
Yeah, I guess I tend to agree that our, one range, one voice, and if RAMS is going to be sending a letter that's going to be speaking on behalf of the membership of RAMS, and I think that would suffice in being able to at least, voice our consensus, or at least semi-consensus with regard to where we stand with this. I think it was really intended to increase participation and encourage participation in the process, but at the same time, again, it puts in a redundancy layer into the process that I personally think is unnecessary, given the openness of the process that's in place. So I think if RAMS is going to send the letter, we're a part of that. I think that would suffice in terms of voicing our opinion towards it.
Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bearable?
Yeah, we haven't officially from RAMS sent that letter yet because we just received this at our last meeting. But we did take consensus of the members there, and they're opposed to it. We're elected by the people of the community or the township and stuff, and those are decisions that we're elected to make, how you operate and run your cities, townships, and school districts. So we don't have to send anything right now. I'm okay with that. Second one was 1089. This is a nightmare bill that they're proposing. They're looking for cities to go back when they got the COVID relief and money in the CARES Act to see if anything's covered by FEMA, and you got to go back and try to get reimbursed. Have you ever seen what the paperwork you got to do with FEMA? Plus, we weren't declared a disaster area under FEMA. So how do you get money back out of FEMA? That's the question that's being asked. I think we just ignore this one unless we want to do something, but why should the city be put on the responsibility and going after money for FEMA? That's a state responsibility since they distributed that money to all of us under the CARES Act. And we've already used it. How are we going to figure out what was eligible under FEMA and not under FEMA? Because it was all done under the CARES Act, under the auspices of the criteria that was there. So we're opposed to that one, RAMS also. We have not sent a letter yet.
Okay, under 1089, same. I think it's the same scenario for us. We know that this is moving forward. The purpose is to put the burden on the local community to try to get reimbursed from FEMA instead of going through the state of Minnesota. So, there are a lot of these kind of bills that are introduced every single legislative session that affect cities and towns. They never get to our level because they're weeded out in that process. And if it's going to become an issue, then our local legislative representatives step forward and say, hey, look, this is affecting you. We're going to take some action. What are your thoughts on there? And I think RAMS is one of our conduits, and of course our local range delegation is as well. So I think we're well represented in that regard, and to be aware of these two bills amongst many of the others that do have some type of an adverse effect on the city or puts an additional burden on their administrative process in their budget is these bills come up all the time. So, but these two bills, I think, are highlighted in this legislative session. Councilor Bearable?
Yeah, just one more comment. If this were to become a reality through the state, that money that we would work on to get back in FEMA would end up with the state of Minnesota to cover their stuff. It's not going back to the federal government. Let me tell you, that's not what it's designed for. So we're opposed, like I said, consensus from RAMS. We have not sent letters out yet. But I believe we will. We have a meeting next week, and it's going to be discussed more.
Well, thank you for that information, Councilor Bearable, and look forward to any additional reports on action taken by the RAMS moving forward. So any other further discussion or any questions or comments about the bill as it sits from an educational perspective for the council? Okay, no action to be taken at this time. Thank you for the information, Councilor Bearable. Let's move on to the next agenda item.
Before we go into the closed portion of the meeting for real estate negotiations, I did put on the councilor's desk a resolution that I'd like to bring forward next Tuesday for the 2021 street project, looking for IRRV money for the infrastructure portion of the project.
I see it says March 23rd, 2021 on the resolution. This is the resolution we're talking about?
For next week, yes.
For next week? Okay, this is a resolution that will be presented next week's council meeting that's requested by our city staff. and it's a resolution to be approved, and we discussed it here today. It was just recently passed out to us this morning. And it's a resolution authorizing the City of Virginia to make application to and accept funds from the Department of Iron Range Resources, the DIRR Community Infrastructure Grant Program for the 2021 Street and Infrastructure Improvement Project. So I read that for the benefit of the public. That's what we're talking about today. Looking for any additional information, council action. I see that Councilor Bearable has his light on. Councilor Bearable?
Yeah, this is an important resolution for us, because if we do succeed in getting dollars, those will be deducted from the grant process, from the actual cost of the street projects for the assessments to people. So this is very important that we send this. That will reduce their costs for assessments, and the state requires, because of the way this project is going, that the assessment has to be a minimum of 20%. So I just want the public to know, and this would reduce that without staying at the 20% if we get a grant.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. On the second page where it's, there's an asterisk at the bottom, it says, note there isn't enough state aid funding to cover any of the storm. I'm assuming that's storm sewers. So does that 1.1 million get kicked down into the assessment, the levy then?
That goes into the city side of what we're responsible for.
So, okay, and then is that in a part of our budget and our plan? So we've got that already planned out?
Yep, but that would be a portion of what would be reduced with the IRRR funds.
Got it.
Because IRRR funds are only for infrastructure underground, they don't pay for paving or anything. So this actually helps us with a good case. There's no
Perfect.
state aid funding. We have $1 million of storm sewer. It's not fair to our citizens to pay that full bill.
And then are we starting to see any revenue from the increase in those rates? Or
Yeah,
no?
we get about 30,000 a year.
About 30, okay. All right, thanks, Brett.
It'll take time for that fund to build up to a point that it's
Thank you,
good.
Councilor Paulson. I think Councilor Johnson's at the ready. To pertain to this, for something different? Okay, thank you very much, Councilor Johnson. Okay, Councilor Bearable.
Just one point, that those of you that may be new on the council, it's been quite a while since we've done street projects. Any of the assessment monies do not go to the general fund. They go back into the street fund. So they're used for future street work. So, in the past, it used to be 50,000 maybe to 75,000 a year. Now it's less because we just got people paying off from the last time. So, and if you have a project that was done within 5 years, they take the most expensive of the two for assessment. They drop one out. So that's in our policy. Okay, but I don't think these pertain anymore because we haven't done any big street work for over 5 years.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Bearable. So there is a motion on the floor and support to approve this resolution to be move forward to the City Council for final approval to make application to and accept funds from the Department of Revenue, or I mentioned Department of Iron Range Resources for the 2021 Street and Infrastructure Improvement Project. So that's the motion, and that's the issue we're talking about today. So it's moved and supported. Is there any further discussion?
Excuse me, Mayor, we do not have a,
We don't have a second? Okay, did we?
or a first.
Okay, looking for a motion then.
I will
Okay.
make that motion.
Thank you. Councilor Beyondich moves to approve, move this
Support.
resolution, and support by Councilor Freely for the next City Council meeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Britt.
Thank you. And one other item I'd like to add to the agenda is we have Chief Alan Lewis here to talk about the emergency order. With the governor's restrictions coming down a little bit, he wanted to come talk to the council about maybe potentially bringing our emergency order down a little bit.
Okay, and then we'll go to you, Councilor Johnson. Good morning, Chief.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. Thank you for this opportunity. I've had a number of conversations with emergency managers from around the state, also in our St. Louis County Emergency Managers meeting. One of the questions I posed in our last meeting is there any benefit to keeping our city's emergency order in place regarding funding, regarding resources, and none of them could give me a reason. Duluth is looking at loosening a lot of their restrictions. The state's order is still in effect. This isn't intended to make a statement one way or the other on that. It's just at this time, as a city's emergency manager, I do not see a reason to keep the current order of the city in place. We've pretty much mitigated any kind of exposure. When's the last time the city had a case? We're looking at months ago. The vaccinations in the police and fire department have, everybody that has wanted a vaccination has gotten, both of the rounds. It's starting to move through the rest of the city.
Yeah, to add to that, Public Works and Library, and I think all City Hall, whoever wanted one has been given at least their first dose.
So it's your recommendation to sunset the emergency order?
I don't see a
Was
need.
any-
I don't see a need to keep it in place unless somebody has any questions for me about potential implications. But I just don't see it. You're seeing already the state roll back a lot of those regulations.
So
I guess I'd take any questions.
So it's your recommendation from staff. There are other emergency managers that are reducing it. We don't see that it's a useful tool for us moving forward. It was put into effect, was it March 24th of last year? And so that's been in effect for a long time. So that's your recommendation. So let's go to the council for additional information or questions. First, Councilor Paulson, and then Councilor Johnson. Councilor
Thank you,
Paulson.
Mayor. And thank you, Chief, for bringing this forward. I know we haven't had a discussion on this for quite some time. And I think when we extended it, when the last meeting we had to do the extension, which was a while ago, I'm not sure exactly which month, but it was definitely a while ago. And I think at that point, we were looking mainly to extend that because of reimbursement issues. So if you're stating that actually no longer exists, I'm absolutely comfortable moving forward with your direction. So I appreciate you coming forward.
Thank you. Yeah, none of the new grants going forward are specifying the presence or requesting the listing of the emergency order. Some of the initial ones did.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, can you tell us specifically what that would mean for the general public, for us? What's going to change, the practicality of what's going to change? What goes away, what?
So as I understand it, the city has not implemented any more restrictive orders than what is currently in place by the governor's orders. As those mandates are rolled backwards, there's only one set of guidelines to follow. Now, while our city hasn't implemented anything more stricter, it just makes us more readily available to refer to one set of guidelines than, okay, now we've got the emergency order, the city's still in place, but the governor's has been rolled back. You're going to see it looking very different when this next one comes out, and then you're going to see it scaled back. So in practicality, I mean, the shields are there. We still sanitize our hands, right? We still have the mask wearing until that goes away in time. But if you look at all of the data, and I didn't cite the data because there is copious amounts of it, but I could refer to that as to why it's really no longer necessary for the city itself to have an emergency order. It's basically, it doesn't give us any added value or benefit at this time.
Buildings will open. The fire hall would open, the library would open, the police department would open. Because the staff is vaccinated, or those that chose to be vaccinated are getting vaccinated. And the newest CDC guidance, like Chief said, there's a copious amounts of information, does state if you are a vaccinated person, you can take a little less, or a little more risk out in the general public than those that are not.
Okay, and then, how do we allow our citizens to continue to use Zoom if they're uncomfortable? Like, how does that play in? Does that still fall under the state orders, or what does that look like?
Council would have to report to the
Okay.
meetings. And we could still use Zoom for presentations and those that want to talk to us, but the council members would have to come. In the last few meetings, we've all had everybody here.
I just want to make sure all those little details are discussed ahead of time so that next week.
And that is an open meeting law
Yeah.
thing, and it is actually being discussed in the House, right? I think it's the House today about extending, changing those due to the state. It worked really well for the last year for a lot of cities. And so they're looking at adding that as a way to have a meeting.
So there are,
There are.
there's some legislation I could get behind as a city for our citizens to be able to support, is saying,
Absolutely.
this is a better way for people to get involved in city government and city planning, that utilizing technology appropriately, and I think that would help out on a lot of our challenges. So, but I appreciate that clarification. And for the sake of discussion and to move forward, I will move that we terminate the city declaration, emergency declaration as appropriate.
Okay, moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
March 24th, 1 year. Does that work?
Yeah, we have to approve this at the council meeting anyway, so effective right then, I suppose. But as of March the 24th, so the motion is to terminate, to expire the emergency order effective March 24th of 2021. The motion by Counselor Johnson, is that correct? Is there support?
Support for discussion.
Support by Counselor Friedlieb for discussion. I have some discussion as well. Counselor Friedlieb.
I would, coupled with this, I guess I would like to see some effort of communications made within the community to, you know, the sanitizing, the social distancing, the importance of wearing masks in public settings where there's congregant gatherings. I think that's important. And I'm not one of those that feels that there's been an abuse of executive orders, to be honest with you. I think it was in the best interest of our communities to have these in place. I think now is the time where we can start backing off on that, but certain things still have an importance to the general overall health of the community, and I think that still needs to be emphasized, that those aspects of it are still in place and should be followed.
Absolutely. I think when used appropriately, the emergency order and the executive order is a very powerful, quick, responsive tool. It's literally like the building's on fire and you're ordering up resources, so you need to address that problem. And I was one of the strongest proponents for getting an emergency order in the city, and the mayor and I and Britt had very early conversations about how important that was going to be. But I also realized that its time is kind of fading now, and we've used the right tool, and now it's time to reassess and not just keep something in place because this is what worked at the time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And just briefly, really the major effect is we'll continue to inform the public about what needs to be done. I think the two major issues with respect to the emergency order now is that all councilors have to be present to attend the council meeting in order to vote in those cases. That's one issue. That's one area, and we're doing that now. And the second is that we have always, whether it's under our emergency order or under the governor's emergency order, we have always advised and educated our public and people, whether it's businesses or residential people, to follow the governor's order, to wear a mask, to provide a safe, workplace environment practice. So we've continued to do that, and by the expiration of this emergency order, that will not change. We'll continue to do that as well. So, it's the emergency order has served its purpose, and now no longer has a purpose within the city of Virginia. So it has been moved and supported to terminate the emergency order that was issued on March 24th of 2019 to expire on March 24th of 2021. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
I have one more quick announcement. It's a good news item. We received a $10,000 grant from Essentia for the Cahoots funding model. So that just came out today.
Excellent.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. The next item on the agenda is the suggested closed meeting for real estate negotiations as per Minnesota Statute 13D05 Subdivision 3.
Okay, I would entertain a motion. Before we move forward, Councilor Johnson.
I have a question about an email that we got on, got it here, on March 1st, and then the meeting set with MnDOT. I don't remember authorizing our lobbyists to set up meetings with the Department of Transportation about Cuyuna Drive, and I'm curious to know if there is new information where they're considering opening that, or why after, we've been discussing this since before I was on the council when they talked about moving. What has changed in the political realm in the last year that we're meeting with them again about this particular issue?
Well, I can answer that question for you, Councilor Johnson. I made the request that we meet with the Department of Transportation to talk about the possibility of reopening Cuyuna Drive, and to see if that was a feasible alternative, and to find out from them any updates about the traffic flow of the Cuyuna Drive and the J-turn that was put in place under Vermillion Drive beforehand. And as a result of the new highway being in place and the issues with respect to the landfill road, I thought there was prudent for us to have a meeting to discuss, Cuyuna Drive and what the potential avenues are pursuant to that. And in addition to that, the potential for business development along that corridor as well. So it's just a meeting to discuss. And so I'm the one who brought that forward.
I guess my concern is having our lobbyists when that was not on our list of priorities from the council. I guess that's where my biggest concern is that that they're doing some work that I would not have been aware of if we had not had the updates. So
Okay,
I
I asked him to
excuse
reach
me,
out.
Mayor, I'm not done. Thank you.
Okay, completely finished then your
I just,
conversation.
I would prefer, I appreciate having a meeting, but I'm concerned that we're badgering the state about this issue, which has been, every time we have met with them since I've been on the council, the answer's been no safety concerns, no safety concerns. And then should some miracle have happened and they say yes, my understanding is that the city has to pay for it. There's going to be, and if I remember properly, it was well over $1 million to readjust the highway and the right-of-way and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I would have rather had a discussion amongst ourselves first and said, yes, let's look at it again. I do intend on being at the meeting to listen and see. I do know that there are businesses that would like to see that open again. And I definitely know Mr. Fido and Mr. Alto want it open again. They've come here and told us point blank they want it open, but when pressed, they were unable to provide any indication in writing that the MnDOT has changed their mind, and that was just over a year ago. So I guess in the future, I would like, when we're going to do something like this, that it be brought up here first and then direct staff accordingly as a body, because it seems redundant, and I'm concerned about, like I said, badgering the state about an issue that I thought has been more than defined several times. Thank you for listening.
Well, let me give a little perspective on here. I understand your concern, Councilor Johnson, and your need to be informed about many of these things, these issues. But I think I'm within my authority or as a mayor to make some more inquiries about things. And it's not just about John Fido and Darren Alto. This actually had nothing to do with them personally. It had to do with potential economic development on properties that were so landlocked that we need more business opportunities there, number one. Number two, some things have changed with respect to the new highway and how things move forward. Number three, I've had comments from people in Midway who I live in, why can't we open Cuyuna Drive? This J-turn is difficult to accomplish. So we have a new administration. We have a new Department of Transportation director. I mean, these are some inquiries that we could make. And with respect to this meeting, it has nothing to do with who's going to pay for this or whether the city is going to be responsible for it, whether it's going to be $1 million or not, because that was based on a completely different intersection-related access to that from a different perspective other than Cuyuna Drive. So this is simply a meeting, and I asked our lobbyists to make some inquiries about setting up this meeting because I couldn't get a hold of anybody from the Department of Transportation. And that's what we pay our lobbyists to help us move forward with some of these issues. So I think it was prudent for us to do that. I think it's prudent to have this meeting. And we're not making any decisions. We're not spending any money. And I don't believe that we're badgering the state of Minnesota. These are issues that we have within our community. We didn't create this issue. The state of Minnesota created this issue. So for me as an individual, as a mayor, I think it's prudent for us to look at every option that we have for economic development to the safety and security of our community. And by looking at some of the changes that have been made based upon what we discussed 4 years ago is completely different. So I think that it's okay for us to do that. If we make any decisions moving forward, this meeting was just to discuss the issue and then bring this back to the council for further discussion. I don't think there's an issue. I really don't. So, thank you. Councilor Paulson. Councilor Baraboo.
Yeah. Steve, I hate to say this to you, but we have lobbyists with Rams. One of the auspices that they do when they see something that's going awry at the state legislature, they bring that information back to Rams to act on. I think it's perfectly prudent that the mayor did this. We've been after them for years not to close that Cuyuna Drive one. I don't know how many times you go to Midway in a week. I go there more than once because my daughter lives there. That J-turn is dangerous. There's been accidents. I was just there the other day. There was an accident. It pulled out right off. It ended up just about my daughter's front yard. So that J-turn, you cannot see the traffic. The way the corner is there, it comes around faster than you can estimate. But the lobbyists are there to help us, and when they see something that is not good for city or like for Rams, they let us know. And it's our responsibility to act on it. And I believe the mayor has the privy to do that.
And one quick issue before we go. These big tractor trailers can't make that turn. They can't turn around. They can't get there. They got to go all the way down to the Borgen Road, turn left, come all the way up to the residential area with these big semi-trucks to get to where they need to go. It doesn't make any sense. So I really do think it's prudent for us to have some kind of a discussion about this issue. We're not making any decisions. We're just having a meeting. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. I would actually agree that that J-turn, I mean, I don't frequently go to Midway, but when I've gone to the cell phone place, it's tricky, yeah. And I guess just to piggyback, if I might, Mayor.
Yes, please.
It was something that's been on my mind, and I was going to bring it forward for the next committee, the whole meeting. But as long as we are having a little discussion, would it be okay for me to maybe give a suggestion regarding the 20 acres up in Midway?
Yeah, please, let's,
If you don't mind.
we're discussing additional comments, but before we move forward, I would ask Councilor Johnson, if anything more you'd like to add, Councilor Johnson, before we go to another issue?
No, not at all. It was not meant to be a discussion. It was meant to be an argument. It was meant to be a point of what I felt and my understanding of how things were working, and that's all it was.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Freely, and then we'll go to the other issue that Councilor Paulson has. Councilor
I
Freely.
just wanted to quickly interject that it's not just Fido and Alto that have made an investment up there. We have a $200,000 investment right at the Cuyuna entrance as well. And I agree that J-turn is significantly more dangerous than the Cuyuna entrance would be, which was in existence for how many years. And there should be traffic controls that could be put up to control whatever needs to be done at that intersection. And I think, Steve, you know, I know that there's a fine line at times between lobbying and badgering. And sometimes, you know, to get the best out of your investment, you almost have to step over that line to start badgering if lobbying isn't doing the job. But I hope we're not at that point of badgering. I think we really do need to just sit down and talk about this and move towards the possibility of getting the best out of the investments that have been made in that area. And MnDOT has the key to that for us. So it'd be nice for them to open the lock. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. Okay, anything else on that particular issue? Okay, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Over the weekend, I just was having some conversations about Virginia actually being landlocked. And we do have that, you know, the 20 acres. And I'm just wondering if we could do up in Midway and we could engage in a feasibility study for a developer. I don't know what that would cost the city, and I don't know what John would recommend in terms of going forward, but I think we're at a point now with the MEC going to be completed in September. The school, I believe, will be completed 2022, and they start in 23? I'm not 22. So I just think it might be a prudent time right now to explore some different options, similar to what we're doing with the hotel feasibility study. And so that would be my recommendation if the council is so willing and John thinks that would be a good idea.
Would it be prudent for us to direct staff in order to talk about this issue internally and come back with a recommendation
Absolutely.
moving forward?
Absolutely, if that would be
That same
okay.
thing, Mayor, thank you.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Would it be good to
Thank
do
you.
so? Thank you for bringing that up, Councilor Paulson. So we'll have staff take a look at that as well. Okay, is there any other item of concern to come up before we go into closed session? Oh, yes, absolutely. So we'll go to closed session. Let's make a motion to go into closed session, then we'll take a quick break and then come back. So looking for a motion.
I'll move to close.
Move to go closed session by Counselor Paulson and supported by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.